Welcome. Tonight, we travel to a time long before ours, to a place nestled quietly among the snow-laden peaks of the 16th century Alps. A small village lies, sleeping beneath the weight of winter, its rooftops blanketed in white, its hearths burning low, its people moving through the rhythm of snowbound days and long, dreaming nights. This is not a story of kings or battles, but of the ordinary, of a quiet life wrapped in wool and wood smoke, where time drips slowly like melting icicles, and every creak of timber and breath in the cold carries meaning. In this journey, we'll walk without hurry, we'll listen to the sounds of silence, we'll warm ourselves by the fire, we'll witness the still beauty of a world moving gently beneath the snow. So, find a quiet place, let your eyes grow heavy, and allow yourself to drift gently into the heart of a silent winter. Welcome to the village. In the quiet hush of dawn, before the rooster crows, before the sun rises high enough to melt even the shallowest rim of frost from the rooftops, the village lies motionless beneath a soft and weighty blanket of snow. There is no wind this morning, only stillness, thick and unmoving. The trees that ring the edges of the clustered timber cottages hold their breath, weighed down with snow and silence. The pine needles are coated in frost, their green dulled into a muted grayish hue by the thick ice crystals clinging to them like lace. A single cottage, low-roofed and half-buried in snow, stands quietly with its shutters closed. Within its walls, built of hand-hewn timber and chinked with a mixture of mud and straw, the air is warmer only just. The embers in the hearth still glow faintly from the night before, a bed of coals tucked carefully under ash to preserve their heat until morning. A small pile of kindling waits beside the hearth. A woman stirs beneath a heap of woolen blankets, her breath forming small clouds in the cold air of the room. Her hair is bound beneath a linen cap, and her hands are rough and chapped from the cold. She sits up slowly, accustomed to the rhythm of winter mornings, and swings her feet onto the packed earth floor. Her woolen stockings are thick, but not thick enough to keep out the cold entirely. She moves carefully, her joints stiff with sleep and cold. She reaches for the taper length of linen dipped in beeswax and holds it near the coals, coaxing it to light. It catches with a faint hiss, and she carries it carefully to the iron bracket on the wall. The faint light pushes back the darkness in the room, revealing its modest contents. A small table, 2 stools, a shelf with crockery, a wooden chest, and the loom tucked into one corner. The loom is covered in a cloth to keep the dust from the threads. The woman wraps herself in a thick shawl and kneels by the hearth. She adds kindling gently, coaxing the fire back to life. Outside, a rooster crows, faintly muffled by snow, distant. A few other sounds stir in the distance. The crack of timber in the frost, a door creaking open, the bark of a dog. The day begins not with urgency, but with quiet acceptance. Winter mornings do not permit haste. Every motion is slow, deliberate. Water must be drawn from the wellet's bucket, frozen solid during the night. Bread must be warmed, and milk stirred to separate the cream. But these things will come later. For now, The morning stretches slowly into wakefulness, like the sun easing over the jagged line of the mountains. Outside, the landscape glows with a faint bluish hue as the first light of day creeps across the snowfields. Smoke begins to curl from a few chimneys, rising straight and steady into the frozen air. The village is small, no more than 30 souls, and each house is spaced carefully apart, with fences buried beneath snow and narrow footpaths connecting doors. A child stirs in a trundle bed beside the fire, blinking up at the candlelight. She pulls the fur blanket closer around her and watches her mother quietly for a moment before rising to sit by the hearth. She knows not to speak. Mornings are quiet. Her mother hands her a warm cloth to wash her face and a cup of thin milk. They sit together for a while, watching the fire gather strength. In a nearby cottage, an old man wakes with the sun in his face. He lies in a narrow bed tucked beneath the window, his breath fogging the glass. He swings his feet down slowly and wraps a blanket over his shoulders. In the old man's hearth, there are no coals. He must begin with flint and steel. He strikes them slowly, rhythmically, until a spark catches in the dried moss and wood shavings he has set aside. Soon, a small fire grows. He adds wood with reverence, as though the fire were a fragile guest he must not offend. The warmth is faint, but comforting. He boils a small pot of water and adds a dried sprig of mountain thyme. It steeps in silence, the scent of herbs rising like a memory. Across the village, other homes begin to show life. The smith's wife opens the shutter of her window and peers out at the snow. She notes the tracks from a fox that wandered close during the night. She makes a sign of protection with her hand and closes the window again. Back in the first cottage, the woman begins her daily preparations. She checks the stores in the cold room root vegetables wrapped in straw, dried beans in a cloth sack, a pot of lard set deep into the cold clay floor. Nothing is wasted in winter. Even the peelings from onions are saved to flavor broth. The child begins her morning task, gathering kindling from the sheltered woodpile beneath the eaves. Her boots crunch softly in the snow, and her breath puffs out in small clouds. She moves slowly, mindful not to disturb the hush. There are no church bells this morning. The priest is ill, and the chapel remains dark. But the villagers know the hour by the light. When the sun crests the eastern ridge, it casts long rays through the narrow streets, gilding the snow in pale gold. By now, the fire in the cottage is burning well. The woman stirs a pot of millet porridge, adds a pinch of salt, and sets aside a small piece of dried plum to soften in the steam. She ladles it into 2 clay bowls and hands one to the child. They eat slowly, in silence, savoring the warmth. Outside, the day continues to brighten, but the village remains quiet, wrapped still in the long arms of winter. Morning stillness does not end with breakfast. It stretches on into small tasks and gentle gestures. Bread is sliced for the midday meal and laid out to soften. Wool is brought near the fire to be spun. A neighbor knocks quietly on the door to share a parcel of dried herbs. Few words are spoken, only nods and the warmth of shared presence. By midday, the village has fully woken, but the stillness remains. It is not a silence of desolation, but one of rhythm, of order, of peace. The snow continues to fall in soft, lazy spirals, landing on rooftops and fence posts with the softness of down. The air smells of wood smoke, wool, and bread. And so the day continues, in calm repetition. This is winter in the mountains, a season, not of hardship, but of quiet endurance. A season that teaches patience. And finds beauty in the smallest motions. The hearth is the heart of every Alpine home in winter. It is more than a source of warmth. It is a place of life, of gathering, of quiet rituals that hold the rhythm of the season together. In the cottage, the woman rises slowly from her stool and begins her careful preparations. The fire must not falter, for once extinguished, rekindling it becomes a slow and uncertain affair. She moves with calm precision. First, she clears the ash and coals from beneath the iron grate, sifting them into a copper basin. The ashes are not discarded. They will be used to make lye for soap, or scattered to melt ice on the path. Nothing is wasted. The fire, like the winter itself, teaches frugality. Next comes the stacking. She arranges the logs thick, split pines just so, laying kindling beneath them. She adds dried cones and thin curls of birch bark, which catch flame quickly. These woods were gathered in autumn, carried down from the slopes and dried in the loft above the barn. The child watches from her stool, fingers wrapped around a warm clay cup. Her breath rises in slow clouds as the woman strikes the flint and steel again, this time to catch a fresh spark for the day's second fire. The flint rings sharply, one of the few sudden sounds in a house otherwise filled with hush. A spark catches. The bark curls begin to smolder and then flame. The fire lifts itself upward, consuming the kindling with a slow hunger. The room begins to glow once more. The woman tends to her cooking pot next. It is a heavy thing, blackened by years of soot and hanging from a swinging arm of iron above the flames. Today's meal will be simple, just barley, dried peas, and some carrot from the root cellar. She checks the water bucket, which has developed a thin skin of ice, and cracks it gently with a ladle. Into the pot she adds water, barley, and the split peas. She stirs slowly, rhythmically, clockwise. The sound of the wooden spoon against the pot is dull, comforting. She sets the lid on top and places the pot above the fire, then pulls her shawl tighter around her shoulders. The child has begun arranging kindling into bundles by the door. She hums softly, a tune handed down by her grandmother, little more than a string of rising and falling notes. The woman does not speak, but listens, and smiles faintly. The scent of smoke has begun to sweeten with the aroma of simmering barley. As the fire crackles, the pot begins to shift, steam rising in little clouds. The warmth spreads further now, touching the far corners of the room, drawing in the cold that had clung to the walls. And as she works, the woman glances outside. The snowfall has resumed, light and quiet. A neighbor passes the window, a bent figure carrying firewood in a sling. They do not knock, they do not need to. Each family has its rhythm, its silence, and its space. She returns to the hearth and lifts the pot's lid. The broth is thickening. She adds salt, a pinch of dried parsley, a sliver of dried meat. Then the lid goes back, and the steam rises again. Around her, the room has come to life. The spinning wheel creaks gently as the child tries her hand at twisting wool. The fire crackles steadily. Outside, snow continues to fall, and all is well. Winter is no longer something to endure, but something to inhabit. In the Alpine village, life continues within the walls of each home, quietly, gently, and with great care. As the fire steadies itself in the hearth, the day enters its rhythm. It is not a rhythm marked by bells or clocks, but by repetition, by necessity, and by tradition. In this season, the hours are shaped by the hum of handwork, the scent of warm fabric, and the soft tread of wool-wrapped feet on wooden floors. The child, her fingers tinged slightly red from the cold, settles near the spinning wheel. She wraps her small hands around the distaff, learning again the gentle art passed down from her mother and her mother before her. The spindle whirls slowly, guided by her hesitant fingers. The wool pulls through unevenly, at first thick in some places, thin in others, but the thread holds. Her mother, seated opposite, works more deftly. Her spinning is smooth, almost meditative. The wheel hums quietly, a soft, creaking rhythm. With each pull and twist, she adds to the growing skein at her feet. Nearby, a basket of carded wool waits patiently, the snowy tufts fluffed and ready. The light filtering through the small window is silvered and pale. It casts long, gentle shadows across the floor. The mother sets her spindle aside and picks up her mending. A linen shirt with a frayed cuff, worn soft by many seasons, receives her care. She threads a needle, her hands sure and practiced. No music plays, there is no chatter, only the low sound of spinning, the crackle of fire, and the occasional sigh of the house as it settles into its frame. In the loft above, the stored apples, wrapped in straw, rest beside clay jars of preserved fruits. Dried herbs hang in careful bundles: sage, rosemary, thyme, each tied with rough string and labeled with charcoal marks. Their scents mingle faintly in the air, a ghost of summer held in a beam of smoke and pine. Elsewhere in the house, a small cat curls near the fire. It shifts only to stretch, purring in response to the heat. The child reaches out to stroke its fur with one hand, while still spinning with the other. Her mother watches, says nothing, and returns to her stitching. The rhythm of the home is broken only by small moments of movement. The woman rises to stir the pot on the fire, adding a pinch of herbs, tasting for salt. She refills the kettle and sets it near the flames. She opens the door briefly to collect more firewood from the stack outside. Snow swirls in through the doorway, catching in her hair before she shuts it again. The afternoon is a time for quiet work, the mending of gloves, all in silence. The work is not hurried, nor is it idle. It is simply done as it must be. Each stitch, each turn of the wheel, each twist of straw into cordage is an act of small care. The man of the house, having returned from tending the animals, now sits by the window, his coat still dusted with snow. He removes his boots and sets them by the fire to dry. In his hands, a block of wood and a simple blade. He carves quietly, perhaps a spoon, or the handle for a new ladle. He does not speak. He simply carves, the sound of the blade against the wood soft and steady. As the sun creeps slowly westward, the house darkens by degrees. Candles are not yet lit. There is no need to rush them. Instead, the family adjusts their places, pulling chairs closer to the window, or setting work aside briefly. The child has grown tired of spinning, and now plays with a set of carved animals, guiding them through imagined fields beneath the table. The mother prepares the table for the midday meal. There is no ceremony, no elaborate setting. A wooden board is wiped clean. Slices of bread are laid out. A pot of softened butter, a dish of pickled turnips, and a slab of cheese make their simple appearance. The barley stew from the hearth is spooned into bowls. They eat without haste. No words are wasted. Between bites, the man nods his approval. The child sips broth slowly. The mother, her hands folded in her lap after eating, watches the fire and listens to the snow falling outside. After the meal, the bowls are rinsed with warm water and set aside to dry. There is no rush to return to work, but no hesitation either. The mother folds her mending and picks up the loom. She tightens the warp threads and begins to pass the shuttle slowly, carefully. The fabric grows row by row. In another house nearby, the same rhythms unfold. A woman grinds grain for tomorrow's bread. A boy plucks feathers from a winter goose. A grandmother stirs beeswax into a pot for candle making, the scent drifting upward. These are the motions that define the domestic winter, not grand or loud, but endlessly repeating, endlessly meaningful. Even when the chores are done, the day is not idle. A new skein of thread is wound. A flax comb is cleaned. A leather strap is oiled. These are not tasks done for productivity. They are rituals, ways to mark the day, to give it structure. Later, as the light fades further, the candle is finally lit. Its flame is steady and golden. The child leans against her mother, eyes heavy. listening as a story is told not aloud, but in soft whispers, the kind that settle over a room like snow. Outside, the snow has grown heavier. The fences are nearly buried. The rooftops now wear thick white caps, but inside, the rhythm continues, quiet, slow, and enduring. This is not the excitement of history's grand narratives. It is not war, or kings, or revolutions. It is the slow breath of life beneath the snow, the careful turning of thread and spoon and needle. It is the peace found in doing, and in doing quietly. And it is this peace that carries the village forward through the long, cold winter nights. As the day unfolds in the Alpine village, the quietness that pervades the winter is more than mere absence of sound. It is a soundscape in itself. It is composed not of silence, but of subtle, layered murmurs that define the season and the setting. Outside the cottages, snow continues to fall in slow, steady flurries. It dampens even the smallest noise, the creak of a shutter in the wind, the distant knock of a woodcutter's axe, the call of a single crow overhead. There is no bustle here, no shouting, no chaos. The village's 30 souls move slowly, wrapped in layers of wool and furs, their steps muffled by deep snow. The crunch underfoot is a soft, rhythmic sound, a faint counterpoint to the near silence of the hills. From a distance, smoke rises from chimneys' blue-gray plumes, winding skyward in vertical stillness. They carry with them the scent of pine, of birch, of alder, and occasionally a hint of cooking stew. The smell hangs in the air, mingling with the cold. Children rarely play outside in the deep of winter, but occasionally a pair of siblings might venture out to trace shapes in the snow, or to follow the tracks of a hare near the trees. Their voices, when they speak, are hushed. It is as if the cold teaches them reverence. Laughter, when it comes, is breathy and fleeting. The livestock, kept in stone barns, tucked near the cottages, make soft, familiar sounds. The lowing of cattle, the occasional bleat of a goat, these are muted too, as though they too understand the need to be gentle with sound. Inside the homes, every noise is magnified. The crack of the fire shifting in the hearth, the rustle of wool skirts, the scrape of a spoon on the bottom of a clay bowl. In one house, a child reads aloud in halting Latin from a psalter. Her voice is soft, sing-song, barely above a whisper. In another, a man tunes a viol, drawing his bow slowly across the strings, coaxing out low, mournful tones that seem to blend with the wind. Near the chapel, whose bell has remained silent for days, the priest, now recovered, walks slowly along the path that leads through the heart of the village. He nods to passers-by. No words are exchanged, only acknowledgments. There is peace in that restraint. The forest beyond the village edge speaks in a different tongue. Branches groan under the weight of snow. Occasionally, snow will slip from a branch, landing with a heavy, soft thump. A raven flaps overhead, its wings loud in the otherwise quiet air. At dusk, the forest becomes a place of deep hush-dance, with the presence of things unseen. Within the homes, silence deepens, candles flicker gently. Conversations, when they happen, are murmured. Often, they are replaced by humming simple melodies passed down through generations, sung more to the fire than to any audience. The sound of the loom resumes clack, thud, rustle. The sound of pages turning, of a foot brushing against the wool-covered floor. In one home, an elderly woman softly chants prayers under her breath as she winds a skein of yarn. The rhythm of her words is almost musical. In the blacksmith's workshop, there is no hammering today. Only the low sound of leather being cut and shaped, the hiss of steam as snow melts from his boots near the forge. The usual clangor is held in abeyance, out of respect for the slowness of winter. In the distance, the howl of a wind begins to rise. It moves through the valley, bending the trees, rattling loose shutters. It sounds not fierce, but sorrowful, a long exhalation from the mountains. The villagers pause in their work and listen. It is not unwelcome. It is simply part of the winter's voice. As night falls, the sounds change once more. The fire burns lower. The stew pot is scraped clean. Footsteps fade up the ladder to the sleeping loft. A creaking board, a sigh, the final rustle of blankets, then stillness. Outside, the snow continues to fall. The roofs are heavy beneath it. The fences nearly gone. The world seems wrapped in wool. And in this muffled, quiet sleep comes easily. The silence is not empty. It is full of warmth and life and the slow, sure beat of time. As evening draws near in the 16th century Alpine village, the light fades slowly, filtered through a sky brushed with faint strokes of violet and ash. The sun sinks behind the sharp ridgelines, casting long shadows that stretch across snow-laden rooftops and frozen paths. What remains is a deepening stillness, an almost sacred comaz. The village prepares to close its eyes for the night. In one home, a woman trims the wick of a tallow candle. Its glow deepens, casting a soft amber light on the beams above. She carries it from room to room, checking that shutters are latched, and that the small wooden box beneath the bed is tightly closed to keep out the mice. Her motions are careful, each gesture measured. Evening is a time for quiet ritual, and each movement holds its own weight. The fire in the hearth is no longer vigorous, but steady. Coals glow red orange. A final log is added not for cooking, but to warm the room as the night deepens. A pot of herb-scented water simmers quietly at the hearth's edge, lavender chamomile, perhaps a shaving of pine bark. The scent is earthy and soothing. The family gathers around the table, which now serves not just for eating, but for companionship. The father sharpens his knife on a whetstone, slow and precise. The child wrapped in a blanket, leans against her mother's side. Her small hand moves across a simple wooden board, drawing patterns in flour left from the day's baking. Storytelling begins, not loudly, but with the softness of remembrance. Tales of winters past, of snowfalls so deep they buried the fence posts, of journeys made to neighboring villages over ice-covered passes, of saints and beasts and old forest spirits. These are not told to excite, but to soothe. The voices are low, rhythmic, comforting. The old ones speak slowly, with many pauses. Their words carry the weight of long memory. The child listens with wide eyes, though her head grows heavier with each passing minute. The candlelight flickers gently on her cheek. In a corner of the room, the cat shifts in its sleep. The grandfather dozes in his chair, a woolen cap pulled low over his brow. Occasionally he stirs, muttering a prayer or line of scripture half aloud. The priest, back in his small rectory, writes by candlelight. His quill moves steadily across rough parchment. A journal of the day's small blessings, a neighbor's shared broth, a child's recovered strength, the simple peace of a snowfall uninterrupted. He pauses often, not from fatigue, but reflection. Outside his window, snow collects on the sill like icing on a cake. Elsewhere, the last chores are done. Boots are set near the fire to dry. Cloaks are brushed free of snow. Beds are turned down, straw mattresses fluffed, and blankets laid carefully. The ladder to the loft creaks as someone climbs it slowly. The roof above groans faintly beneath the weight of winter. Before sleep, prayers are spoken, some aloud, some silently, a whispered Ave Maria, a Pater Noster, a plea for good weather, for health, for another quiet day tomorrow. The words drift upward with the smoke. And then, one by one, candles are pinched out. The glow fades, leaving the soft red pulse of the fire. Outside, the snow falls steadily, blanketing the world in gentle forgetfulness. In the stillness that follows, the village sleeps, not fitfully, but deeply, with the confidence of those who have weathered many winters and who know the wisdom of warmth and rhythm. The night is long, but it is not feared, it is embraced. Only the wind speaks now low, and even as it threads its way between the cottages, over the chapel roof, through the bare branches of the sleeping forest, and the stars above, unseen through the clouds, keep their silent vigil. As night deepens, the Alpine village disappears beneath a growing silence. The snow, ever present, continues to fall in slow spirals, soft as breath. The once faint glow from cottage windows has vanished now, replaced by darkness punctuated only by a dim ember or a flicker of candlelight from behind heavy shutters. The houses, buried halfway in snowdrifts, seem like part of the land itself, hollowed spaces of warmth tucked into the bones of the mountain. Smoke from late-burning hearths lingers low to the ground, drawn slowly into the night sky. The stars are veiled behind thick clouds, but their presence is still imagined, watched for. Within each cottage, sleep takes on many forms. In the lofts, children lie bundled together, their small bodies sharing warmth beneath heavy woolen blankets and furs. Their dreams are quiet, shaped by stories told by firelight and the rhythm of the snow against the roof. In sleep, they journey across frozen fields, meet saints and silent wolves, wander into the deep woods, and return again before the dawn. Below, their parents lie side by side, not speaking, only breathing. The chill lingers at the edges of the blankets, but the hearth coals hold a protective warmth. One of them stirs, listening not for danger, but to confirm the sounds of stillness. No rattle of shutters, no call from the stable. All is well. In another house, a widow sleeps alone, her cat curled beside her. She keeps a candle lit through the night, an old habit. Its flame dances faintly against the beams of the ceiling, flickering like the breath of an old prayer. On the table, a psalter lies open, a string of wooden beads marking her place. Outside, the animals in the barns shift in their sleep. Hooves scrape gently against straw, a soft snort from a cow, the rustle of feathers as hens settle deeper. The livestock sleep, not as humans do, but in a rhythm attuned to darkness and cold. And above it all, the mountains loom, black silhouettes against a deeper black. In summer, they sing with meltwater and avalanche, but now they are mute, still, serene. The village sleeps in their shadow as it has for centuries, cradled by stone and sky. Even the chapel is dark. The crucifix above its door is draped in frost, and the bell rope hangs unmoving. But inside, the sacred space holds a deep quiet, undisturbed by wind or time. In the corner, votive candles have burned to their ends, their wicks curled in wax. In dreams, the villagers remember the scent of hay in warmer months, the green of pine in spring, the laughter of a market day in the valley far below. But here, in this moment, in this depth of winter, those things are only whispers beneath sleep. Snow continues to fall, inch by inch, hour by hour. The world reshapes itself in silence. A fence disappears. A well is buried. A set of footprints vanishes. But the rhythm remains. The mountain holds its people in stillness, and the night long, slow, and full of breath watches over them. Soon there will be morning, another fire to stoke, another bowl of warm broth, another slow day beneath the snow. But for now, in this deepest part of night, the village dreams.